chapter 13, Revelation 13. We are officially back in we're back in session here. Revelation 13, we're going to jump right in and get going. We just finished talking about Israel and Jesus and history lesson, and now we're jumping into the beast. So let's go talk about the beast. I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Remember, sea is people. Having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. And upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And I think what we'll see as we continue, the name of blasphemy is the name of the beast. So it's just one more name. Remember how we were talking before? One of the, to him who overcomes was, I'll give a white stone with a name written on it that no one knows except him that received it. And we talked about the value of names. We talked about how in the New Jerusalem, or Jesus, one of the things that Jesus said was, to him who overcomes, I'll write my new name, I'll write my father's name, or I'll write my new name, I'll write the new name of the New Jerusalem. And you remember that scripture? There's a couple of places in the to him who overcomes verses that talk about having names. And I made a slanted comment about if you've never gotten a tattoo and ever wanted one, this is your chance, because you're going to have a name written on you, right? The name, having a name on you, placed on you, shows ownership, right? It shows access. It used to be that in the Old Testament, like if you were an indentured servant to somebody and you wanted to stay with that person for the rest of your life, you could earn your freedom over a period of time if the person who owned you was willing to let you do that. But not everybody was bad. I mean, there were lots of people who really had loving relationships. I mean, slavery, the slavery that we are familiar with, where the enslavement of people and the poor treatment of them and whatnot, is not always what slavery was, right? There are people who willingly put themselves into slavery because they wanted to work, they had a relationship, their families had a relationship, whatever, they needed an income. They're like, I'll serve you for 10 years, whatever the case may be, right? There are types of indentured servanthood that weren't all necessarily negative. I just want to make that statement. And I know that there are some people that are listening to this and they're going to just scream and yell that all slavery is horrible, but that's not what the scripture says, not at all. There are people who, as slaves, they loved their masters so much that they want to stay with them and they never wanted to leave. And so scripture actually allowed for that. If you were one of those people and you wanted to stay a slave the rest of your life and never leave, you could dedicate yourself to your master. The scripture says that you go to the door and you put your ear against the door and you drive an awl through your ear. So you drive an awl through your ear. In other words, you put a hole through your ear and in essence you end up putting a gauge in your ear, and that was your way of identifying that you were dedicating yourself to your master for the rest of your life, that you were never going to leave. So just Google awl and you can read about it. I know it doesn't sound very fun, but you had to want to do it, right? I mean, but anyway, I say all that just to say this. When you have names associated, physical markings associated, the Egyptians did eye tattoos. So if you were part of a royal house, you were part of a slave to a royal house, they would tattoo your eye in black. And so that was a way that you would know that you were a slave to Egypt. So various cultures have had various things. In Africa, when you get married, they take a knife and they cut the skin off of your thumb. You don't wear a ring. It creates a scar, and that scar is your ring. There are various tribes in Africa that do that. So we have their cultural aspects to various people groups that have to do with the imprinting of tattoos, names, body piercings, things like that, and that is the way that you identify ownership. I'm just making a point. So here we have this beast has names written on its heads, and it's the name of blasphemy written on their heads. The beast that I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power and his seat and great authority. Now, just to kind of give you current potential countries that could be represented by the animals, right? So if you follow Germany, their tank is called the Leopard, right? The German Leopard is the main military vehicle. And if you go back, this is a little bit more sketchy, but you can find some resources that identify Leopard being an early version of the reference to Germany. There are other countries, or about 5 or 6 other countries, that reference the leopard as their symbol. Germany is the only one of them that I've seen that seems to carry weight in Scripture. The bear would be Russia, because Russia's symbol is a bear. The lion would be the UK. So in theory, this could be Germany, Russia, and the UK. Like as the body parts, the core components of the beast kingdom, right? I will say this, only because it's fascinating, that there was so the Deutschmark is the German currency. There was a very interesting study that was done nearly 20 years ago. And I think this is really super interesting, especially if you've been following the 15-minute cities. Have you guys been watching the stories about the 15-minute cities? Oh, gracious. You need to go read. You need to go read. 15-minute city, 20-minute city in one case. It's very scary, very interesting. A very huge push right now. It's actually happening in the UK. You will be confined to an area of your city that you can reach only within 15 minutes. You are not allowed out of that 15-minute area more than 100 times per year. You have to have a pass to leave your 15-minute area. Your school, your hospital, your shopping must all be done in the 15-minute area. And it's all being done under the guise of controlling carbon emissions. So if you want to leave the 15-minute area, hey, there's some coffee back in the back. If you want to leave the 15-minute area, you have to use one of your allowances for that. If you go more than twice a week outside of your 15-minute area, the government fines you for driving across the check stations. And that's now happening today in the UK. I just watched a video on it today. So I'd seen some 15-minute city rumblings today on email, and I just watched a video on it today to see what's going on. This isn't going to happen. It is happening. It was formulated in 2019, reformulated in 2021, and executed in 2022. Interestingly, 20 years ago, the same 15-minute city idea, although it wasn't called that, controlled environment was created, cashless system. If you lived in this 14 square city block, you agreed to work in this area, shop in this area, live in this area, and you agreed to do this cashless. It was a prototype society, and they got the people to do it willingly. Interestingly, they called this cashless society currency the mark, because the Deutschmark is the German currency. And so I only think it's interesting because we have the mark of the beast, and the mark of the beast happens to be tied to a currency system that we're going to read about in just a minute. But we do have the UK, which we know is already headed toward the beast system for multiple reasons, some of which I just told you. Germany, we know, has already been headed toward the beast system and has been for the last 20 years. They've been dedicated to it. And Russia, that's the one that's a little bit less obvious to me. I don't hear a whole lot of information about what's happening for cashless societies, global IDs, and things like that out of Russia. I hear other places, but